Gambling will always come with uncertainty, but give me just 20 minutes and I guarantee you'll walk away a smarter, more profitable NBA bettor. Forget everything you know about last 5 stats, head-to-head matchups, and betting overs on superstars. Those are the exact traps that keep 99% of bettors losing long term. I've personally profited over 40k on PrizePicks alone, and my Discord members have cashed out thousands during last year's playoffs using this exact strategy, yet no one online is talking about it. So in this video, I'll break down the core strategy I call Team Synergies and go over a step-by-step playbook with free tools so you can start building smarter, more profitable slips tonight. Before we get into the actual strategy, let's take a quick reality check. Because if you're watching this video, chances are you used at least one of these methods. Looked at last 5 stats and thought, he's hitting his last 4 out of 5, the over is free. Taking a superstars over because, well, it's Luka's debut with the Lakers, he has to show out. Use head-to-head stats, or even worse, past season stats with completely different rosters, like he always cooks his team, let's jam the over. And let's be real, we both know it hasn't been working. I'm not logged into your PrizePicks account, but I would bet a lot of money that most of you watching this video hit your NBA props around a 50-50 rate. And I don't say that lightly. I analyzed over 30,000 PrizePicks props from the past 2 seasons, and the data shows roughly 51% of the major props go under. That's not a coincidence. They know people love rooting for overs, and PrizePicks is extremely good at setting tight NBA lines. Now I go deep into why these popular tactics are terrible in my PrizePicks tier list video, but quite simply, each of these strategies have the same flaw. It's already priced in. PrizePicks, sportsbooks, the entire market, they're not dumb. These are billion-dollar operations. They've built algorithms that factor in the exact same things you think you're researching. So if you're doing what everyone else is doing, you're not beating the books. You're just following their script. Remember, I have long-run success and never have I ever researched using the methods I just mentioned. But here's the good news. There's one thing that's much harder for them to price in, and that's Team Synergies. It's based on one simple idea. Stop betting on individual players and start betting in pairs. Because in the NBA, nobody plays in a vacuum. Every player's performance is influenced by who they're sharing the floor with and how they interact. Let's say you're a huge Lakers fan and you've been watching how the addition of Luka affects the team. You might notice something like when Luka racks up assists, LeBron tends to go off in scoring. Or maybe Luka's rebounding more, stealing boards from Bron. Whatever the relationship is, you're no longer betting on isolated props. You're stacking them strategically, like Luka over assists with LeBron over points, or Luka over rebounds with LeBron under rebounds. You're increasing your odds of cashing 2 props off 1 read. That's the core of synergy betting, and now I'm going to show you the 2 most powerful types you need to know. And stick around because right after, I'll give you real synergy examples from this year's playoff contenders using private data I've been tracking all season. This first synergy is the most straightforward but also the most reliable, the points plus assist stack. You've got a playmaker and you've got a scorer. For every assist, there has to be a made shot. Now here's where things get interesting. Some scorers rely heavily on assists to get their points, and some playmakers tend to funnel their assists to the same teammates over and over again. So instead of playing these guys on their own, you stack them in the same direction, in the same slip, both to go over or both to go under. In the background, I've been running some Denver gameplay this whole time. Did you notice anything? Every single one of those buckets were assisted by Jokic, and the main people who benefit are Michael Porter Jr. and Christian Brown. Jokic finished that game with 11 assists, MPJ dropped 21 points, and Brown had 25. With the help of Jokic clearing his assist total, they both easily cleared their points lines. Now here's why this works. Around 80% of both MPJ and Brown's made shots are assisted. Jokic, as the engine of that offense, sends 23% of his assists to Brown and 22% to MPJ. So when Jokic is feeding, they're the ones that are eating. Compare that to someone like Jamal Murray, who creates for himself, only 43% of his makes are assisted. So stacking with Murray wouldn't be as effective as stacking with heavily assisted players. The goal is to stack a playmaker with his preferred targets. This synergy works best with teams that have a dominant passer, someone who averages 8 to 12 assists per game. Think like Harden on the Clippers, Halliburton on the Pacers, and Trey on the Hawks. But what if a team doesn't run through a clear playmaker? That's where the second synergy comes in. It's all about how players fight for the same pie. The second synergy is point splits. There's only so many points to go around in a game, and there's a whole lot of players to distribute those points across. It's nearly impossible for all players on the same team to go over their points props in a given game. The question becomes who's going over and who's getting left out. This synergy is all about identifying inverse relationships between scorers. It's the opposite of the previous synergy. We take one scorer to go over his points while we take the other to go under. There's 3 main archetypes for this kind of synergy. Let's start with the most obvious, superstar splits. Let's take the reigning champs, the Boston Celtics. We've got Jason Tatum, usually lined around 27.5 points, and Jaylen Brown typically sitting at 22.5. These are Boston's two highest usage guys, but unless they're both going nuclear, it's much more likely that only one of them hits their over. And the data backs it up. Out of the 54 games I've tracked this season, they went opposite directions on their point lines 65% of the time. To put that into perspective, if there was no relationship at all, we'd expect them to go in the same direction 50% of the time and split 50% of the time. This is a clear opportunity to profit, and this strategy is not just limited to teams with two main superstars. This next archetype is based on a scorer and their primary assist man. At the end of a possession, a player can only get points or an assist, not both. Let's take the Clippers for example. Assuming standard pace and usage, James Harden isn't likely to spike in both points and assists in the same game. It's usually one or the other. Now enter Derrick Jones, who scores 80% of his buckets off assists. If Harden is scoring a ton, chances are he's not passing as much, which means fewer chances for Jones to hit his over points. When you flip it, if Harden racks up assists, he's scoring less, and Jones is likely scoring more, especially off Harden assists. Over a 40-game sample, they went opposite directions 62.5% of the time. Same synergy concept, just a different relationship driving it. This last one's a little bit tricky, but still super valuable. It's the play style contrast. It's all about how players score, not just how much. Let's talk about Alperen Sengun and Dillon Brooks. Sengun thrives in the paint. 92% of his field goals are twos, mostly around the rim. Brooks, on the other hand, is a perimeter shooter. More than half of his shots come from three. So, if Houston is dominating inside, Sengun's more likely to hit. If the game skews towards three-point shooting, it's a Brooks kind of night. This kind of contrast in scoring profile led them to splitting their over-under results in 58% of the 69 games I tracked. No matter which version of the point split synergy you spot, the logic is always the same. Take the over on one scorer and take the under on the other. Now of course, these aren't the only synergy types, but they're the two easiest and most consistent to find. And if you're deep in your bag on a specific team, you can absolutely discover your own. Because once you understand how teammates influence each other, you're no longer betting based on how a player might perform. You're betting based on how the team actually plays. And that's where the real edge lives. Now as promised, let's go over the best synergies I was able to find this season. As I'm recording this video, these are the top 10 teams most likely to win the NBA championship according to ESPN. So let's run through a rapid fire synergy breakdown for each one. I'll also show you exactly how you can pull most of this data yourself when I walk through the live slip example in just a bit. Let's kick it off with OKC, the team of Mr. Aura Man himself. Surprisingly, the best synergy here isn't even with SGA. It's actually between Jalen Williams and Lu Dort. Over a 62-game sample, they've split their point lines 60% of the time. It's that playstyle contrast. J-Dub flourishes in short range, while Dort is that long-distance shooter. So when one pops off, the other usually fades. The Cavs, who have the best Eastern Conference record, have two great examples of assists into point synergy. Mitchell to Mobley has hit in the same direction 65% of the time over 57 games. And Garland to Jared Allen has hit 62% over 66 games. But here's a twist, these stacks aren't interchangeable. You might think Garland into Mobley works too, but that combo only hit 52.5% of the time. Mitchell has 82 assists to Mobley. Garland, who averages 2 more assists per game, only has 76. Meanwhile, Mitchell has only 49 assists to Allen, while Garland has 138. It's clear they each have a favorite target, so it doesn't only matter if you rely heavily on assists, but also who's typically assisting you. Let's get back to the defending champs, the Boston Celtics. We already talked about Tatum and Brown as a classic superstar inverse, but another point split duo to keep your eye on is Derek White and Drew Holiday. They split their over and unders 61.5% of the time across 52 games. It's a usage clash. Both are guards, both can run the offense, but usually only one shines in a given game. The Lakers have been given a massive boost with the addition of Luka, but that also makes things a little messy. This season, the LeBron assist into Hachi point stack has hit at a ridiculous 70.5% over a 51-game sample. But now, with Luka in the mix, that dynamic might change. It's a huge shift in team structure, so it's too early to trust any firm synergy here. You could try inversing points between LeBron and Luka as a speculative play, but personally I'd recommend watching how it develops through the playoffs before committing. The Houston Rockets are another team I briefly touched upon. We covered Sengun and Brooks earlier, but another reliable point synergy is inversing Van Vliet and Jalen Green. Quite simply, they've split points 62.5% of the time over a 56-game sample. For the Clippers, I mentioned the Harden and Derrick Jones point synergy, but that's not even close to the best one. The best stack here, by far, is Harden assist into Zubac's points. Zubac scores 70% of his field goals from assists, and Harden has 205 assists to him this season. That's nearly double the number he has to anyone else, with Powell coming second at 114. Together, Harden and Zubac hit in the same direction 71% of the time on a 69-game sample. With Jimmy Butler joining the Warriors, things are shifting, and it's hard to have conclusive data. But early signs point to potential synergy between Butler assists into Moody and Draymond points. Jimmy's averaging more assists than Draymond at 5.8 per game, and he's dished 27 assists to Draymond, 26 to Moody, and only 28 to Curry, despite Curry averaging more than double both those guys' points. Moody and Draymond both have extremely high assisted field goal rates at over 83% each, which makes them great candidates for stacks with Butler. I like the Knicks because they actually give us two strong options. First, for an assist synergy, Brunson to Mikal Bridges. Mikal has 76% of his shots assists, and Brunson has 30% more assists to him than any other teammate. They've moved in the same direction 61.4% of the time over 57 games. Second, a nice point synergy is between Josh Hart and Karl Anthony Towns. These two have split their points prop 65% of the time over 66 games. It's a classic playstyle contrast. I love Denver because there's so many options. You have the absolute machine in Jokic and a whole bunch of players who feed off assists. Over a 60-game sample, Brown's points hit with Jokic assists 63% of the time, and MPJ slightly less at 60%. Those are the two best options, but you can also stack Jokic assists with Aaron Gordon or even Peyton Watson. You can also get away with a triple assist stack, Jokic with 2 scorers. And finally, the Pacers. They may be the least likely to win on this list, but they're my #1 favorite team to stack. You've got Haliburton, one of the league's elite assist men, and multiple players who thrive off his passing. Turner with 90% of makes coming from assists, Naismith with 86.2%, and Siakam with 67%. Each of these players' points props have hit in the same direction as Haliburton's assists over 60% of the time this season. And it doesn't even stop there. You've also got Obi Toppin with Siakam as a point split synergy, and Haliburton with Mathurin also splitting at over 60% of the time. Bottom line is, this team gives you both assist stacks and point stacks, making them one of the most flexible teams in the league for synergy betting. Wraps up the top 10 teams. Some of these stacks are subtle, some are obvious, but they all give you that one thing: a strategic edge that you won't find by playing props individually. Now let me walk you through a live example going over my exact thought process on how to successfully implement these stacks into a PrizePicks slip. Okay, before we get into the creation of the slips, we must know the best slip type to play. This looks complicated, but bear with me for a bit because this is just the PrizePicks basic strategy chart. We have every single slip type here, and then we have the break-even hit rates that you need to actually be profitable on these slips. So we all know a 2-power pays 3x, which means you need to hit 1 out of 3 of your slips to actually break even. To do so, you need to hit your individual props at a 57.74% rate. And spoiler alert, pretty much no one could do this, which is why I flagged this as a never play slip type. But it is possible to be profitable with the 4 to 6 powers and the 5 and 6 flex, with the 6 flex being the best slip type on PrizePicks. I don't say it's the best because you're going to hit it often. Obviously, you're hitting 6 props. That's not going to be easier than hitting 2 props. But in the long run, assuming you have good bankroll management, you will be better off playing 6 flexes over 2 powers because of this break-even hit rate. You'll notice that you only have to hit 54.21% of your props compared to the 2 powers at 57.74. On top of that, now you have the ability to stack. You want to be hitting a 2 stack at 29.39% of the time. Now for the triple stack, it's the concept I was going for with Jokic, Brown, and MPJ. You need to only be hitting around 1 in 5 of those is going to put you in a profitable position. Now, all of that is meaningless without proper bankroll management. So I even have this max percent bankroll to bet for each of the slip types. If you have $500 in your bankroll, you're not putting $50 on a 6 flex, you're putting only $4, which is exactly that 0.8% of 500. I go into way more detail about all of this in my tier list video, but for now, I think you have the context for the rest of the video. So let's get into that slip creation. So for this example, I'm going to be targeting the hero assist into Bam points synergy. And my idea here is that this was a good synergy throughout last season and the beginning of this season with Butler, but now with Wiggins, does that change the dynamic? So the first thing I'm looking for in an assist into point synergy is how many of the scorer's points actually come from assists. And the official NBA site has a tab that shows you exactly this. So if we go and type in Bam Adebayo, you'll notice that 64.6% of his field goals made are assisted. So for players I typically target, I like to see at least 60%, so this is a good sign for me. Now, of course, the higher this number is, the more synergy there could potentially be, but it's not the only number that matters. The next step would be to go over to PBP stats and see the assist into scores. When you get onto the site, it's going to be all linked in the description, by the way. Click Get Stats, and you'll notice that you'll see the assist player into the score. So this is exactly where I found that James Harden has 209 assists to Zubats, and 115 assists to Norman Powell. But in this case, we're looking at Tyler Hero, so we're going to type in Hero in the search bar, and you'll see that he has 99 assists to Bam, with the second best being at 54. Next thing you could do is go over to the score section and check the same thing, but this time type in Bam and see where his assists are coming from. And again, you'll see 99 from Hero, and then the next best is only 53. Now we have a highly assisted player who gets most of assists from Hero, and Hero mostly assists Bam. Now to add on to this, we could actually compare some historical data between Bam and Hero by using our last site, Betting Pros. Again, this is a free site. We could go ahead and type in our player, Tyler Hero, and you're going to see it's going to pop up all the lines he has for this next game that's coming up versus the Bulls. And you have this last 15 graph for that prop, as well as the previous line. Now, in this case, we're talking about the assist prop, so we're going to go over to that one and tag in his previous lines. Now, this is a bit bootleg, but to check the relationship between him and Bam, we could take a nice little screen grab of this and store that up on the top of our page. Now, we could go over to Find Player again and check up Bam Adebayo and go over to his points prop and grab his previous lines. So now we have the last 15s for both these players, and we're going to grab another screen grab here. Now, when these both open, you could kind of just put these right over each other and compare them and see who went over in which game and did they go over together. And what you notice right away in this first game here versus Boston, they both went under their lines. So Hero only got 5 assists, Bam got somewhere near 10 points. So we could put a check mark here for this game here in Boston. Now, in the next game versus Memphis, you'll notice they both went over together. Next game, they did go under together again. So that's 3 games in a row. These guys went in the same direction. In this game versus Detroit, they did not go in the same direction. But for the next 3 games, you'll see these charts are almost identical here. Houston, Charlotte, and Golden State, under, and over. Then again, versus the Hawks, they both went under right here. Philly, one went over, the other went under. That is not going to be a check mark there. Washington, same case here. But Boston, they both went over together. Versus Memphis, they did not go in the same direction. This Philly game, Bam did not play, so we could kind of cross that out. Then versus the Bulls, they both went under. And lastly, versus the Pelicans, one went over, the other went under. But now what we have is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 check marks in 14 games. Now, when we're doing this short analysis, we do want to be seeing at least a 60% hit rate in the past 15 games, or 14 in this case. Now, obviously, a 14 to 15 sample size is not ideal. I think having some idea of the relationship is better than not having it at all. So that's what I would recommend for you guys. Okay, so now that we know this is a good stack, how do we know which direction to actually take it in this specific game? Well, that's where we use the sportsbook's odds in our favor. So in this case, on Bam Adebayo's 19.5 points, you'll see the consensus is -115, -115. And if you don't know what that means, in the absolute simplest terms, the higher the minus, the more likely it is for something to occur. So in this case, -115, -115 basically means that this Bam prop is a 50-50 prop. But if we look at his assist prop, we'll see that it's -129 towards the over, -105 towards the under. I'm not going to get into the math in this video, but to translate this -129 line, there's about a 52.5% chance that Bam goes over his 4.5 assists. Okay, but in this case, we're looking at Bam's points line. If that's 50-50, how do we know the direction? Well, we could go over to Tyler Hero and see how his assist line is looking. So if we click into his 5.5 assists, you'll see that the consensus odds is -125. So they're saying the over is more likely to happen than the under. So the idea here is that in a vacuum, Bam has a 50-50% to go over and under. But now that we're pairing him in a slip with Tyler Hero, if he goes over his 5.5 assists, well, then that increases the likeliness that Bam actually went over his 19.5 points. Rather than 50-50, it's going to be elevated. So now we could go over to PrizePicks and we can confirm that we want to play Tyler Hero assists into Bam points, both on the overs in this case. Now, I'm filming this during the play-in tournament, so I don't have a ton of props to work with, but for the sake of the live example, I'm going to lock in another stack to turn this into a 4-power. Just remember, I always recommend running 5 or 6 flex slips when you're actually playing for profit. This is just to walk you through the process. So you notice I added Klay Thompson and Najee Marshall to the slip. This is a simple point synergy, but the question is, which direction are we going to take each of these guys? So again, we're going to head over to Betting Pros and type in Klay Thompson and see what direction these sportsbooks are agreeing is the more likely outcome. In this case, you'll see that the over is at -120, the under is at -109. Again, the higher the minus, the more likely it is to occur, meaning the over is the more likely outcome for Klay Thompson's 13.5 points. So right now, our lean is towards the over for him, but we'll also check Najee Marshall and see where he is leaning towards. And in this case, he has more juice towards the under, -120 here compared to the over at -113. So Marshall's leaning towards the under, Klay is leaning towards the over. So that is going to be the stack we're going for. Klay on the over 13.5 points, Marshall on the under 12.5 points. And I'd love to throw more than $5 on the slip, but once you start hitting too consistently using strategies like these, PrizePicks will cap your bets to stop you from robbing more from them. So I'll throw a 5 on that and let it ride. So at this point, you should understand how team synergies give you an edge on PrizePicks. and I've given you all the tools to build winning stacks on your own. But if you want to shortcut the process, join the premium Discord. Inside, I post slips with way more stacks that I could ever fit into a single video, not just for NBA, but across multiple sports every single day. We're talking 1.5 years of long run success, over 1,000 units in profit, and a community of over 2,000 bettors who are winning consistently. First link in the description.